using the Turbo architecture. One good thing about Turbo is that it gives you a fully how can I put a globally distributed CDN right out of the box. So a lot of beginners sometimes don't know that when you upload static assets like files, CSS files, JavaScript, images, etc., you really want to put those behind a global CDN so that when those assets are delivered to a user, depending on where that user is located in the world, the nearest server will deliver those assets, and that's called the CDN. So a lot of beginners don't even know that that's something you should do, but then becomes the issue of how do you even set up a CDN properly? How do you properly do that? And the major service providers for that are Cloudflare, excuse me, and CloudFront. But if you use Turbo, your assets are automatically parked behind the CDN. And if you're curious, it's an abstraction to CloudFront. Hello, Christian. Thanks for joining us. So what I've done is I've configured every Turbo application to leverage a CloudFront CDN that's already in existence. It's kind of a shared CDN for everybody. And you automatically gain access to it when you're uploading any kind of static asset. And so you may as well take advantage of that. I take advantage of that in all my projects because it's so easy. So for example, if you go on any of my websites, the chances are the images and the static files are coming from the CDN, and you want to really take advantage of that as much as you can. So we're going to do a quick project today using React and Redux to demonstrate the upload process and to leverage the CDN so you can see how it works firsthand. So before we get started, make sure you have the following. Make sure you have the Turbo CLI. Right now, the current version is that. So if you do not have that, you want to do sudo npm i-g turbo CLI. So make sure you have that. Next but not least, someone from a previous tutorial mentioned that we need the Webpack. Sudo npm i-g, the Webpack CLI, like that. Make sure you have that installed because the build scripts use Webpack. So you want to make sure you have that globally installed. And we're also going to need gulp because the build scripts also use gulp. So make sure you have those three things installed globally, and that'll give you everything we need to create a project locally. We are going to deploy it because that's the only way to really see the power of the CDN. So go ahead and create an account on Turbo. Obviously, I already have one. And once you have an account, let's create a new project. And let's call it a file upload. And we don't have to give it a description, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so this will give us a Turbo environment upon which we can deploy our project, which will, again, automatically link it to the CDN. So that's good. So make sure you have all that ready to go. And I'm going to get started on my desktop. And I'm going to create a new Turbo project with the same name. It doesn't have to be the same name, but it helps keep things in track. We're going to use React here so that we can also double this up as a React Redux tutorial because why not? So let's cd into the project root directory and run the npm install. And this normally takes about a minute or so to install all the node modules. I don't remember if I did the React flag. So let me just double check that. If I didn't, we have to start over. So let me see. Oh, here it is. Here's the React flag. So I did the React flag, which gives us a full React Redux environment right out of the box. So it's kind of like create React app with the addition of Redux. So it's pretty convenient. It actually adds a lot, maybe a bit too much. So one of the first things we're going to do is go in there and remove some of the template code that we're not going to use. And then we're going to start setting up a file uploading user interface. And that's it. So this should be done in a minute. And we're going to run the dev server to make sure that it properly worked. So back in your terminal, it's already running, sorry. Okay, that's the Webpack build. Okay, great. So we want to run the dev server by doing this, turbo dev server. And this will run a local express server on 3000. So just wait for that to confirm. And as you can see right here, it's localhost 3000. So head over to that and make sure you see localhost 3000. And that's the scaffolded contents of the project. And bear in mind, this icon over here indicates that it is in fact a React project. I am using the React Chrome plugin. So right here indicates that we're using a React production build. So the next thing we want to do is connect our project locally to our remote environment on Turbo. So grab the app ID, just copy that, and do the following command. In your root directory, do the following command: turbo app, and then paste in the ID. And this will thereby connect your Turbo project locally to your remote environment on the Turbo ecosystem so that we can deploy, which we're going to do right away. So go ahead and type in Turbo login. If you're already logged in, you don't need to do this. So technically, I don't need to do this, but a lot of people are confused by this step. So I'm just going to log myself in again. And then I'm going to do Turbo deploy, just to make sure that our local project also works on the deployment environment, the staging environment on Turbo itself, so that we can be confident everything we're doing works both locally and on staging. Hey Tiger, how you doing? So that normally takes about a minute. And on the very first deploy, which is obviously what this is, Turbo creates the sort of sandbox environment for you, a part of which is the CDN. So in doing so, we're creating the sandbox environment, which links our static directories to the CDN, which is great. And actually, we can see an example of it in working action right now once the deployment is done. So you can see right away how this works. All right, so this should be done in a second. It's done. Here is the staging URL of your project, or my project in this case. So copy that and then paste it into the browser, and you'll see the same sort of scaffolded template that we saw locally. You see the React icon here, but this is deployed on the web, right? So this is actually a live website. And now what matters is down here. You see the static assets? If we copy this image address like so, if we copy that and then paste it into a browser, what you'll notice here is this URL. You see where it says cdn.turbo-vertex? This is the CDN that I was referring to. That's the global CDN that your assets are automatically distributed to by virtue of simply being a Turbo project. So part of the inspiration of the name 360 is that every project gives you sort of a 360 environment so that you don't have to worry about plugging in all these other things that you really should be doing. So for example, if you didn't have your static assets behind a CDN, it kind of reflects an amateur approach, things of that sort. This, of course, is a CDN, so I use Turbo as oftentimes I use Turbo as just a CDN, and it's been pretty convenient for that purpose. So let's go ahead and get started now on our own project. So here we are. So let's run the dev server. And here we are on localhost 3000. And like I said earlier, this is a React Redux project. So let's open that up in our text editor so we can start hacking away at this thing. So let's open this up. Alrighty. If you look at the src directory, you'll see that this is where all the React code is. The index.js is the entry point of the React code. Let's get rid of this over here. This intro component is where the actual component we're looking at on the main page. So right here is the intro component. So if we remove that and we insert our own contents instead, welcome to my app, we should see our contents appear after we rerun the build script, which is going to be turn off the server and then npm run build. And then turbo dev server to rerun the local host. And then if we reload, we should see welcome to my app. So that works. That means we have full control of the UI and we're ready to begin inserting our own contents. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm just going to select this over here. And first thing we want to do is we're going to create a container component called files. So let's do that right now. So let's head over to our src directory, and we have a components directory, which has one subdirectory called containers. So let's head over into that directory. So src cd src components containers. Right now we have only two files, users and index. Let's create another one called files.js. And that container will be responsible for rendering a list of the current files that we've uploaded during this current session. So that's what we will be using that for. So let's head over to the containers and let's head over to the index. And we're going to get rid of this users container. That's just a sample container that we don't really need for this project. Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of the actual the actual file itself because we're not going to use it. So let's get rid of it. What happened here? How did I do that? Huh. For some reason, I cannot right-click on it. I don't know what happened there. All right, we'll leave it alone then. It's not a huge thing. So inside the containers, let's do import React component React. My Sublime is acting kind of funky. I'm going to restart this. It's hi Nikki, how are you? Let me just relaunch Sublime and see what. There we go. Much better. All right, back in business. Okay, and then render, return. The files container. Don't forget to export the file itself. Okay, so and let's go back to removing this. Now inside the main entry point, the index, let's go ahead and import that file container. Index, it will be components and containers. And then let's render that guy and see what we get. Okay, I'm going to go here and run the dev again. So I'm going to open a new tab and run the dev, the build script, excuse me. Alrighty, let's run the dev server. Head back to localhost, and here we go. Obviously, rerunning the build script is kind of a hassle, so I'm going to run npm run dev, which is going to run the webpack with the watch flag, as you can see here. So now I can just leave this running in the background and not worry about it over and over again. And so now we can still see everything showing up here the way we expect. So let's go ahead and start filling out this files container. So let's discuss the UI real quick. So we're going to put a class name here. Bootstrap is automatically integrated into the scaffold, so we can just use a Bootstrap class called container. And let's see here. Let's create two columns. One column which will show a list of the current files that have been uploaded, and another column that shows a list of another column that shows with a button that enables you to upload a file. So where you can click on it and then click on the button and then select the file to upload. So sorry if that was hard to follow. So we're going to create a row. With the two columns that I just described. Okay, and then we'll go with a button here. Upload file. And then we'll go with a header here. Current files. All right, so we'll go with that for now. Obviously, very simple UI. Nothing too complicated. Upload file, current files. Go with that too. Over here. Okay, so let's see here. So next thing we need to do is figure it out so that when you click on this button, the file selector drops down where you can select a file. So I'm going to use a module for that called React dropzone. So it's going to be import dropzone from React dropzone. Obviously, we need to import that because we don't have it right now. So let's go ahead and import that module. It's just a component, so we're just importing a component. Alrighty. And so now we can use this component. So the drop zone component, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's just a div where you can drop files using drag and drop, and it'll start uploading those files automatically. So I like to have a little button though, so that the user knows to click on something to activate the upload sequence. But whatever is your preferences, should be fine. So we want to create a drop zone area right here. And then we're going to embed the button inside the drop zone. The drop zone div has its own default styling, but we're not going to use it. So we're going to use our own styling instead and remove any border. And then the required property is the onDrop property, which is called when the user selects a file. So we should do this dot upload file bind to this, but this method obviously doesn't exist, so we have to create it. And this takes a files argument, which is an array of files. So for now, we're just going to do a console log upload file, and then grab the first file. And then I think every file has a name property. I believe so. So we will find out. All right, so let's run that. Now I ran the dev script, so it's rebuilding as we go. So we don't need to rerun that, which is nice. So we just got to run the dev server. and then run the app. This time we got to open our console and then upload the file, and then there we go. So there we don't want to see our tax returns. Here we have a list of files from my desktop. So as you can see from the method, once we select a file, it'll console log this right here. Hopefully, let's see if that works. So let's try this, and there it is right there. So if I select another one, let's try an image this time. There it is right there. Okay, great. So our drop zone integration worked, and we connected it to an on-drop, and it's successfully reflecting which file we have selected from the selector. So that's good to go. So at this point, we have to actually upload the file, literally upload the file. Here's where we're going to use the Turbo SDK to leverage the CDN that comes built into the Turbo environment. So what we need to do right now is import Turbo from Turbo 360. This is the SDK. So if you look at the package.json, you'll see that the Turbo 360, it comes automatically integrated to every Turbo project. And this is basically your liaison to your Turbo environment for this project. So we're going to need that. So const turbo SDK equals turbo. And here we have to pass in a site ID parameter, which is our app ID right here, that we created at the beginning of this tutorial, like that. So as a string like that. And that way the project knows, it associates your local source to the project. So hopefully that makes sense. And then see here, the Turbo SDK automatically has an upload file. Let's see, which returns a promise. Response. And here we will just console log in the responses. File uploaded. And we will also console log in error if that happens. So console log. Alrighty, let's give that a shot. So our dev build is still running smooth, everything good there. Our web server is still going. Let's reload the site. Okay, and I'm going to select a text file. So let's go with trying to think of which one of these are. I don't know if any of those are good for internet consumption. So I'm going to create a text file. This is a test file. Test. Alrighty, let's go with that right here. Okay, Turbo 360 is not defined. So I misreferenced the SDK. So right here, that's my mistake. So I called it Turbo, and then I referenced it as Turbo 360. So that's my mistake. So let's try it again. The build is done. And let's upload the test. And there it is. So here is the confirmation for the test file. Are you going to demonstrate the full? Well, Sung-Yi, what might not be very clear right now is that this is a Node.js project. So Turbo is a Node.js environment. So right now we're using purely React. Technically, this could all be done straight on React anyway, because we're just going right to the CDN anyway. So in this case, no, but that's not because I'm using Turbo instead. It's because we're just doing straight image uploading, and that's it. So as far as the backend integration goes in this project, it's technically not required because we're going right from the client side right to the CDN hosting repository, I guess, file system. So, which is what we've done right here. So here's the JSON from the callback, at least a successful callback. So let me just wrap that text. Okay, as you can see, we have a success confirmation and a result, and the result key is the file itself, and then there is a URL key right here, which is what matters the most. And you will see that it provides you a URL right here, like that. And if you paste that into your browser, you will see the test file. And here is a link to the CDN, the Turbo CDN. So this is sitting behind a global CDN automatically. So you don't have to set that up or anything like that. It just works. Now, if you just go to your project here and click on storage, you will find that same file right here. See, it was uploaded 2 minutes ago. And that gives you another reference to the same file. So this will work for any file type. I don't believe there's a size restriction, or if it is, it's quite large. It's probably like 5 gigs, something like that. So you can just use it for your storage purposes if you want to. And in some cases, I actually do that. Now, I want to show you real quick how images work, because the images are a little bit different. So let's go ahead and post an image. Okay, so right here is the result, but look at the URL property. It's a little bit different. It does not reference the storage link. That's because I'm using an image hosting provider here, which makes it very, very easy to, well, actually, I'll just go to the dashboard, which makes it very, very easy to resize your images. So here's the image I uploaded a few seconds ago, right here. If I click on it, you'll see the image, that's me, in its native size. Right? This is the natural size of the image. Now, if I want to render a cropped version, I go all the way to the end of the URL, and I do equals S, and the size of the crop. So if I want it to be smaller, I can do 120, and it'll automatically scale down to a 120 pixel size version, where the longest side is 120, or in this case, 220. I did 220 right here. Now, if I want to crop it to a square image for like a thumbnail, for example, so I use this a lot for thumbnails, I can append a -C like that, and it'll give me a perfect square ratio of the image, and it'll center it for you. So it'll evenly cut off the sides so that the center of the image is what remains in the main area. So this is very useful for thumbnails. So very often I'll do something like this, like 72C, to create a thumbnail image that can be returned to whatever client-side application I'm making very conveniently. Obviously, the image itself is commensurately reduced in data size. Otherwise, there would just be no purpose, right? So it would just be, kind of silly. So for example, if I throw this on my desktop, we'll call it thumbnail. The image size is 3 kilobytes. If I go back to the native size, just the natural size, and I throw this on my desktop, that wasn't supposed to happen. Throw this on my desktop right here. This is 40 kilobytes, so it's over a 10x difference. So that's a very powerful advantage of this image uploading sequence that I use a lot. I've been using it for years, actually. So if you look at any of my projects and you see a thumbnail, I'm using that, right? That's how I'm doing it. So here's a project I'm working on. These are all being used in that way, same as all of these. So you can see right away how useful it is. And then if I click on one of these images, you see I'm restricting the size of this image the same way. This image might be very, very big, like 3,000 pixels wide, but I can restrict its dimensions by using this right here. So hopefully you guys can see that. And therefore, it'll never exceed 750 pixels in length, which is a very, very convenient thing. So, so yeah, that image hosting feature of Turbo is extremely useful, and as is the other features of just uploading static assets. So the uploading part was actually pretty easy. So now let's get to the actual rendering of the data on the client side, just using standard React and Redux in this case. So to be clear, normally this would not be justifiable for Redux. We would just normally maintain an array of images or files in the state. So this would be overkill for Redux in this case. But a lot of people want to learn Redux, so let's go ahead and use it. So let's see here. First thing we got to do is connect this component to Redux. So we're going to import the connect library from React Redux. And let's see here. We have to create a state2props function, which takes a state argument, and as well as a dispatch2props. Which takes a dispatch argument. Right now, these won't do anything, but I'm just setting up some template code here. And then we're going to run the connect, which takes a state2props, as well as a dispatch2props. Okay, so these don't do anything right now, but their eventual purpose will be to connect this component to the various aspects of the store that we want to connect it to, as well as the actions. The dispatch2props function connects the component to any number of actions that we want. So we're going to use one in this case, which is basically file uploaded. So we have the store and we have actions. So let's take care of the store first. So the store is basically a collection of reducers, and the reducers are responsible for maintaining the data that we tell it to. So in this case, we are going to maintain a list of files. So I'm going to create another reducer. And call it file reducer. And let's go with that. And we need to import, or more accurately, export the file reducer from the index file. We're not going to use the user reducer, so don't worry about that. However, let's copy from the user reducer and paste it into the file reducer and just remove everything that we're not going to use, which is pretty much all of it except for this right here. Okay, so this will be just a quick, easy way to get some template code in there. Now, keep in mind that we removed the user reducer. It's very important to keep track of that. So in the corresponding stores file, we have to make sure we don't forget to make the same adjustment here. Otherwise, the store will be looking for a reducer that doesn't exist. However, we're going to replace it with the file reducer, which is what we've done right there. So I think I made a mistake here. So reducers, there we go. Yeah, that's what it should be. So now our store consists of one reducer called the file reducer, which is being exported here in the combine create store function. So that should take care of that. And then inside the file reducer, what we want to do is create a case for the scenario that we just executed, which is basically file uploaded. Right, and right now we won't do anything in here other than a console log. Okay, so here we're going to do a console log, which will show the file that was uploaded at the end of the upload sequence. So then the question becomes, well, then how do we actually invoke this case? Well, that's going to happen through an action. So in the actions folder, let's open up the index and let's remove all this template code as well. So like I said, there's a lot of template code here we're just not going to use. I think in future implementations, I'm just going to remove a lot of this, or at least comment it out. So let's see here. So let's leave that behind. Let's do file uploaded. File. And this will return, and this is going to be a synchronous action. Now remember, every action needs what's called a type. And the type is basically the case name, so file uploaded. And this will ensure that when this action is invoked, this reducer goes to work. And it does, well, right now it's just a console log, so it doesn't do much of anything, but it confirms that the action was properly invoked. So here we have our, we can get rid of this now. We have our what's called an action creator that we can dispatch from the container that we wrote earlier. So let's go ahead and open up that container again here, and let's connect the dispatch. So file uploaded. And this is from the actions. Now bear in mind, we have not imported the action, so this will certainly crash. So let's go ahead and import the actions file from actions. And I believe that's 2 levels up, right? 1, 2, yep. And so now this reference is valid. And while we're here, let's connect the store to the file reducer. So that's state.file, like that. And this key right here, just so you're aware, is a direct reference to this right here on line 11. So it's a direct reference to the actual file reducer. So that's, oh, hey, Carlos, how's it going? So that's the thought process there. That's how I'm getting these variables from. So now these are now properties on the component, and that's why it's called state to props and dispatch to props. So I can reference this property. I can invoke the action by referencing this as a property. So at the end of this, I can grab the file, uploaded file, and that is response result. If uploaded file equals null, if for some reason that key isn't there, don't do anything. But otherwise, we take the props and we call the uploaded file uploaded action, like so. And that should trigger this action, which then invokes this reducer, which for now does nothing more than a console log, and that's it. So assuming that worked, let's give it a shot. Oh, dev server, so turbo, dev server. Test. And right here is what we care about. You see where it says file uploaded, file reducer, line 13. So that means it worked. So that means the reducer was successfully invoked. I should have JSON stringified this. JSON stringify. But we can now proceed confidently knowing that this callback was successfully triggered. So now we can just grab the file, and let's go with an empty array here to initialize, and this should be let. And then let's see here. So what we want to do is we want to let updated equals object assign, create a copy of the updated of the all array, and then we want to insert. Actually, I'm going to put it on top. The new file inside the copy of the array. And then in the updated state, we're going to replace the array like so. And this will thereby trigger a re-render on the file's component. However, this files container isn't even referencing that array because we haven't written that code yet, so we won't say anything. So let's take care of that right now. So let's create a files array, which is this dot props dot file dot all. That's this reference right here. And then we're going to create an ordered list files, and we're going to map through that. And then let's see here. All right, and then it needs a key. Files have an ID property, so that should be the key. So file.id. And then inside here, we'll put a span. And we'll put file, I believe it's name is what we want. Name. All right, let's go with that. And that will render all the uploaded files in a list. Right, now the important thing is right here, line 31, in conjunction with these bottom lines. This is where we're using Redux for the state management of the array of files. Like I was saying earlier, this is a bit overkill for a simple project like this. I would normally just maintain it in the component state over here. But again, this is supposed to be a Redux sort of demo, so I'm just giving a simple application of a Redux architecture. So let's go ahead and upload the test file. There it is. Now let's upload an image file. And there it is. And notice how the more recent one came out on top. And then one last thing I'm going to do, just to sort of put a button on this, is to put a bow on this, excuse me. So I'm going to render this as hyperlinks. So I want to do href. So that we can also attach the URL and create hyperlinks. So it should be file.url. And let's open that in a new window. So that from here we can directly reference those very files that we uploaded and click on them. So let's try it again. So if I click on this guy, there it is. Now you see how it's blue. If I click on it, it'll actually show me the file from the CDN stored version. If I upload another one, and there it is. And if I click on it, it'll show me the image I just uploaded with the formatable URL. So if I go back here and do S90-C, it'll give me a thumbnail, etc., etc. So that's it. Everything is properly flowing through a Redux architecture. Obviously, this project leaves a lot to be desired. It's not very friendly, UI friendly. But there are also some data challenges that I would like you to consider doing on your own as an extension of where you would naturally go next for this project. So for example, one natural thing would be to show a thumbnail right here, if it's an image. So if it's an image, it should show a thumbnail of that image right here. But if it's any other file type, let's say, for example, a text file or a PDF file or maybe an audio file, each one of those file types should have a different hard-coded icon. So you should have a different set of images for audio, video, text files, PDF files, things of that sort. And depending on the file type, it should show a different icon over here. That would be a good thing to work on next. Another thing to work on would be, notice how when I reload the project, it goes away because the state is only maintained for the current session, right? So once I reload, all that's gone away. So a good next challenge would be to make it persistent. So adding either a database or connecting it to maybe what do you call a Firebase instance, so that when I reload the page, the current files are still there, and that would be another way you can handle that. So yeah, it's a lot of things you can do here. A lot of ways to improve upon this, obviously. But at a bare bones level, this is how you upload files and whatnot via a Redux architecture using the Turbo CDN, which, as you can see, comes right out of the box and is very easy to use. So here are all the files we uploaded in this demonstration. So hopefully you got that working. I'll post all this code and this video on my website soon. And if you need any guidance, or if you're struggling with it, you can just download the code from the website, which is right here, of course. And you can just use that as your reference points. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully